The wind never sang the same song twice on Salvini's 9. Some days it howled with the rage of a dying star, other days it cooed like a child drifting to sleep. Riven Dallin had lived with it long enough to know its moods. Long enough, too, to recognize when the wind carried something else entirely. It began 6 weeks into the assignment. He'd been sent to observation post IDOS 3B for a standard 3-month data cycle, monitoring glacier drift patterns, seismic rhythms, and long-dead tectonic activity for the Institute's backlogged planetary archive. A lonely task. The kind no one really wanted unless they had something, or someone, to forget. Riven never talked about what he was trying to forget. Not to the AI that managed the hydro-recycler. Not to the pilot who dropped him off and gave him a pitying look he didn't need. Not even to himself. Some ghosts lose interest when they're ignored. His didn't. The signal came on the 51st day. Faint. Musical. Repeating. He had been outside the post, checking one of the exposed geothermal vents for frost bloom buildup. The scanner in his hand blinked an unfamiliar rhythm, 3 pulses, silence, 3 more. At first, he thought it was interference. But then it happened again the next day. And the day after. No pattern in nature repeated so perfectly. Riven replayed the signal each night. Not through the outpost speakers, but in his own head, while lying in his bunk and staring at the condensation pooling above the heat vent. He began humming it softly. Unconsciously. And when he dreamt, the song was there. Always in the same voice. A woman's. Low. Clear. Full of a sadness so ancient it made his chest ache. He didn't know the language, but he understood what it meant. Not with his mind, but with something deeper. He understood longing. Silence. And the pain of being remembered only by the wind. On the 59th day, he dug. Not literally at first. He cross-referenced archive maps, scanned old mining schematics, ran resonance models. The source of the signal wasn't above or around the glacier. It was below it. Deep, 12, maybe 14 meters into the ancient ice shelf. No previous expedition had reported anything unusual there. He submitted a non-urgent anomaly report to the Institute. It would be 3 weeks before anyone reviewed it. Maybe longer. Planetary administration had cut most staff since the glacial belt was deemed archivally dormant. We'll get to it eventually, they'd said in his assignment briefing. So Riven got to it first. On day 61, he suited up, packed the resonance drill, and brought an emergency beacon just in case. He told himself it was probably just a relic. An old distress buoy or a broken sensor loop echoing back its final broadcast. He'd find it, log it, maybe even drag it out for a field bonus. A reward for curiosity. He didn't expect to find her. Not at the bottom of the borehole. Not wrapped in layers of translucent crystal like a fossil in amber. Not with her hands gently folded over her chest, her eyes closed, and that same soft song humming in the back of his skull. He didn't breathe for a full minute. Not from the cold. From awe. She wasn't frozen in a way he understood. She wasn't frostbitten, decayed, or preserved by accident. She was placed there, intentionally, beautifully. Embedded in a crystalline matrix that looked almost grown rather than formed. The moment he laid eyes on her, the signal stopped. But the feeling it had awakened in him did not. He lowered the scanner toward her and watched as the readings fluctuated wildly. Energy signatures he couldn't classify. Temperature readings that defied physics. Her body registered no heartbeat, no oxygen draw, but also no decay. No entropy. He placed his gloved hand against the crystal and the strangest thing happened. It warmed. And her lips parted. Riven spent the next 3 days analyzing the formation. He slept less than 4 hours total. Every test he ran returned anomalies. Every theory contradicted the next. She wasn't human. Not genetically. But she was close, closer than any known xenoform on record. Her hair was long, dark with strands of silvery blue like moonlight twisted into silk. Her skin had a subtle iridescence under light. Not scales, more like something biological trying to mimic starlight. He tried to talk to her once, just to the frozen shape behind the crystal. "Who are you?" he asked softly. His breath fogged the surface. She didn't respond. Not until the fourth night. He was dozing at his desk, half dreaming again, the old lullaby humming at the edge of sleep, when a low chime shook the room. Not an alarm. Not a warning. A signal. The scanner he'd left beside the crystal core was flashing again, brighter than before. He stumbled out into the cold, barely remembering to activate his thermals. The wind was loud again, thrashing like some ancient god was pounding on the sky. But the ice was silent. He entered the excavation tent, crouched beside the crystal, and gasped. A thin crack ran through its surface, delicate, curling like the branch of a winter tree. And inside, her eyes were open. They were violet. Not the color of flowers, but of deep ultraviolet, bright and unreachable. She looked at him. Not past him. Not through him. At him. And Riven's heart broke open in his chest like something that had waited too long to breathe. "Can you hear me?" he whispered, kneeling beside the containment shield. She blinked. Then, her lips moved. A single word. He didn't recognize the language. But it hurt. It was like hearing your name spoken by someone who died before you were born. "Say it again," he whispered. She did. And this time, Riven didn't try to translate. He simply answered with the only word that made sense anymore. "Yes." The crystal began to dissolve over the next day. Not melt, dissolve. Like it recognized that its purpose was complete. He kept a constant watch. Her body adapted rapidly. Oxygen uptake returned. Her pulse, though slow, stabilized. Her skin flushed with warmth. She began to breathe deeply in her sleep, like someone waking from centuries of dark. By day 67, she opened her eyes fully, sat upright, and looked out toward the white sky beyond the excavation dome. Riven brought her a thermal wrap and helped her sit near the heater. She accepted his hand without hesitation. "Do you understand me?" he asked. She tilted her head. The motion reminded him of a bird learning how to fly again. "I am Riven." "Riven Dallin," he touched his chest. "Riven." A flicker of recognition passed through her eyes. She placed her palm against his. Her touch was warm. Electric. "Naya," she said softly. And when she said it, his memory betrayed him. Because he remembered that name. Not from data logs or recordings. From dreams. From nights on Salvini's when the wind sang songs only he could hear. From broken love letters never written. From something older than memory. "Naya," he whispered. She smiled. A small, aching smile. Then, she collapsed. "Stabilization in progress," the AI readout stated. "Biostructure compensating for atmospheric imbalance. Internal flux rate within tolerable variance." Riven didn't need a full medical bay to know she was going through some kind of adaptive phase. But the real mystery wasn't physical. It was the resonance field that now extended from her body. The AI labeled it unknown harmonic flux, a pulse. A kind of vibrational song radiating in all directions. He knew this song. He'd felt it long before he ever uncovered the ice. And now he understood why. Riven kept his distance at first, unsure how much his presence disturbed the harmonics. But Naya reached for him whenever he stepped too far back. Her eyes, too ancient, too full of something not quite grief, never left him for long. On the evening of the 69th day, she spoke a sentence. Just 6 words. Not in his language. But in hers. And he understood every one of them. You stayed long enough to remember. He felt it again, that ache, that thread between them pulling tight, as if the universe itself was sighing at a reunion it thought would never come. He didn't know what she meant. Not fully. But he knew he would never leave her. Riven couldn't sleep. Naya had fallen into a light rest, curled beside the portable heater he'd set up inside the dome. The flickering light played across her skin, catching on the soft edges of her features. Her presence filled the space like warmth after years of frost. He watched her chest rise and fall slowly. Each breath was steadier than the last. He wanted to ask her 1,000 questions. What are you? Where did you come from? Why do I remember your voice from my dreams? But something held him back. It wasn't fear. It was reverence. He'd spent most of his life studying languages, mapping alien syntax, documenting dead dialects, constructing bridges between the spoken and the unspeakable. And yet, in Naya's silence, he felt the purest kind of meaning. Something sacred. She didn't need to explain why he felt a piece of himself returning when she looked at him. He just did. By the 71st day, she could walk. Her movements were slow but sure, like someone relearning balance in a world where gravity whispered in different directions. She followed him outside the excavation tent once, wrapped in the thermal cloak he'd modified for her frame. The wind didn't touch her. It moved around her. As if it remembered her too. She stared out across the glacier, her eyes wide, the sky reflecting inside them like distant fire. This world forgot me, she said. It was the first sentence she spoke in his language. He turned toward her, stunned. How did you? You taught me, she said, and placed 2 fingers gently against her temple. Not here. In the dream. Riven's breath caught. You dreamt of me? She nodded. Before you found me. Before you sang me awake. I never sang. Yes, she said, stepping closer. You did. In pieces. In thoughts. In longing. She reached up and touched his chest. Your memory carried me back. Riven felt something inside him give way. A dam that had been holding grief, wonder, guilt, all tangled into one knot that finally unraveled under her touch. I thought I came here to forget someone, he said quietly. Turns out, I came here to remember you. Naya's gaze softened. We are stories told in the dark, she said. You found mine. The AI assistant, nonverbal, ambient, and usually invisible, flashed a quiet warning on his console that evening. Anomaly increase detected. Harmonic flux radius expanding. Interference with station systems projected in 48 hours. Riven ignored it. He spent the next day exploring the harmonic field. Naya allowed him to record fragments of her song as she sat cross-legged beside the energy bloom that pulsed faintly beneath the glacier. Her voice wove through frequencies too subtle for human hearing. But the instruments caught them. And Riven felt them. When she sang, he remembered things he'd never lived. Planets with lavender clouds. Cities built in orbit. Oceans that glowed from within. And always, always, the feeling of waiting. Waiting for someone to come back. That night, they sat beside the geothermal conduit, sharing warmth from a battered heating coil. What happened to you? He asked finally. Naya looked away, her fingers curling into the cloak. Our kind, we reached too far. Touch time where it folds. I was part of a song meant to preserve memory through collapse. You were sent forward, he asked. No, she said softly. I was buried. Like a seed. Meant to wake only when the song returned. And the song was, me. She nodded. Riven felt his throat tighten. Why me? You remember the sound of silence, she said. He didn't understand at first. Then she leaned her head against his shoulder, and he did. He remembered growing up in a silent household, his parents, both scholars, always communicating through signs. He remembered his first heartbreak, and the quiet that came after. He remembered the ache of being forgotten, even when surrounded by people who smiled politely. Silence had never been empty for him. It had always been full of something waiting. On day 74, they kissed. Not like a climax, or a beginning, or even a confession. They kissed like people who had known each other in 1,000 different stories and finally found the one where they were allowed to hold hands without consequences. The heater had gone out, and they were wrapped in shared blankets. Her skin radiated warmth now, whatever adaptation she'd undergone had completed itself. She no longer needed the containment dome. They kissed in the simplest, most natural way. No hunger. No performance. Just recognition. Like stars aligning after centuries of drifting alone. Afterward, she rested her head on his chest, and he stroked her hair gently. "Do you think you'll stay?" he asked. Naya didn't answer for a long time. "The song isn't finished yet," she said. "What does that mean?" "There is more beneath this glacier. More than just me." Riven closed his eyes. "Others like you? Maybe. Or maybe something older. Something that sang us into being." He pulled her close. "I don't want to lose you," he said. "You won't," she whispered. "Not in any story." The next day, the institute contacted him. They'd received his anomaly report. A team was inbound. Scheduled to arrive in 2 weeks. Their tone was polite but direct. His station logs had triggered planetary interest. The glacier contained potential historic value. Riven stared at the message for a long time. "They're coming," he told her. Naya was quiet. "Then we need to go deeper," she said. "Where?" She turned toward the ice shelf. The pulse had grown stronger. The song, louder. "Where the silence started," she said. "Before they take it apart." They left at dawn. He brought only what he needed: thermal gear, a pack of rations, the scanner, and a tool set. She needed nothing. Just his hand. They descended into the glacier via the borehole he had drilled weeks earlier. But where it had ended in crystal, now it led deeper. The path had opened, melted by harmonic energy, she said. Called open by her awakening. The further they went, the warmer it became. After 5 hours, the ice turned to glass. Then to stone. Then to something else entirely, shifting walls that shimmered with memory, like mirrors that reflected not light but feelings. "This place remembers us," Naya said softly. "I've never been here." "Not in this life," she answered. He didn't question it. He couldn't. Because he felt it too. And when they reached the final chamber, he understood. It wasn't a tomb. It was a choir. Thousands of crystalline shapes filled the walls, each one humming a soft note. Harmonies layered and layered until it became impossible to separate any voice from the next. They pulsed softly. Blue. Violet. Silver. "What is this?" he whispered. "Our memory. Our last language," she said. "A love song for the stars." Riven stepped forward, entranced. "How long has this been here?" "Long enough to be forgotten." And then she turned to him. "But you remembered." They didn't return to the surface that night. Instead, Riven stayed in the chamber with her, surrounded by voices too ancient to name. They made a fire from a collapsible emitter. They shared stories, his about growing up on Ventura Station, hers about a sea that once breathed mist into the sky. They kissed again. Slower. More sure. Like two people who'd built a language with no grammar, just meaning. And somewhere deep in the crystalline field around them, a new tone joined the harmony. A sound born of two hearts saying "I remember you." And for the first time in his life, Riven Dallin did not feel alone. Naya had never known air like this. Too thin. Too dry. It tugged at her lungs like a thread pulled wrong. She stood at the edge of the borehole, where the wind made fractured music across the outpost antennas, and stared at the sky, pale, colorless, too wide. She had no memory of this place. Not as it was now. Only echoes. Shadow imprints. Dreams caught between layers of ice and sleep. Riven watched her from the dome's entrance. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, though the word didn't quite fit inside her body yet. Language had returned faster than memory. Or maybe it was the same thing, just rearranged. He came to her slowly, cautious not to startle her, even now. "You're breathing faster," he said. "Too many stars," she murmured. Riven followed her gaze. "Most people say that's the best part. Most people haven't forgotten what they lost to reach them." He didn't answer. Not right away. Instead, he gently took her hand and guided her back toward the warmth of the habitat. "Come inside. You'll adjust. Your body's adapting faster than any model I've ever seen." "What about your heart?" she asked suddenly. He stopped. Naya turned to face him fully, her hair catching the twilight wind. "What happens when I change faster than it can keep up?" Riven didn't flinch. "Then I'll run faster." Naya closed her eyes. For a second, her lips trembled with something caught between fear and faith. Then she said quietly, "It won't be enough, one day." "Then we use that day to remember today," he said. And with that, she followed him inside. Her dreams returned that night. No longer fragmented or scattered, they came whole now. Loud, luminous, flooding her sleep with visions of silver architecture and vast oceans that floated upward instead of falling. A planet where time was folded like cloth, and each hour could be touched, moved, played like music. She was someone there. Not just a sleeper. Not just a song. But a guardian of something sacred. A songkeeper. Her voice was meant to hold memory in place. Not through words. But resonance. Tone. Harmony woven into the fabric of reality. That was before the rupture. Before the sky cracked open and silence spilled across her people like poison. She had volunteered for stasis. She had been the first. The only one to wake. And the song, the signal she had sent across the vacuum of centuries, it had found him. Riven Dallin. A man who had carried loss like a second skin. A man whose silence made him the only one who could hear her. When she woke, she knew him before she knew herself. "You're dreaming louder," Riven said the next morning, bringing her warm fluid and a repurposed nutrient pack. Naya looked up from the console where she was trying, unsuccessfully, to input commands with trembling fingers. "I am." "You were singing in your sleep." She blinked. "Was it good?" He smiled. It made the station hum back. She paused, then touched her throat. "It's starting to happen again." "What is?" "The remembering. Not just for me. For this place. It's waking too." Riven frowned. "What does that mean?" "Memory isn't only in minds. It lives in space. In the cold. In things built to forget. But nothing stays forgotten if the right voice calls it back." He set the drink beside her. "Then keep calling. Maybe it remembers what it was meant to be." 2 days later, the tremors began. Subsurface quakes, small but rhythmic. Patterned. Not natural. Riven ran every diagnostic he could, but the scanner just pulsed with unreadable symbols. He swore the harmonics were forming shapes now. Feedback loops that seemed to sketch words inside sound. And in the middle of it all, Naya stood still, her eyes glowing faintly under the outpost light. "They're close," she said. "Who?" "The others. Your people." She shook her head. "No, them. When the mining team from the institute arrived, they didn't knock. They came in a dropship that scarred the sky open and landed 3 kilometers south of the glacial ridge. Bright suits, hard faces, data pads, and questions they asked too quickly. Riven met them with a half-truth and a smile. Signal interference. Geological anomaly. Minor resonance. Nothing dangerous. They didn't believe him, but they had no reason not to. Yet. Naya watched from inside the dome. They don't feel it, she whispered. They hear only data. Not the song. Riven took her hand. Then we stay ahead of them. We go back down. Find the source. Lock it if we have to. And if it opens anyway? He swallowed. Then we make sure it opens on our terms. They left that night. No lights. No signals. Riven loaded the pack with extra thermal cores, a second emitter, and 2 portable scanners. Naya didn't take anything. Her body had begun to self-regulate, temperature, oxygen, even light. She glowed faintly now in the dark. Not metaphorically. Physically. You're changing, he said, tightening the straps on his gear. She nodded. I'm remembering. What if it takes you away from me? Then remember this, she said, and kissed him. Slow. Deep. Breathless. I didn't come back to find the song, she whispered. I came back to find you. The path beneath the glacier had shifted again. What had been smooth crystalline tunnels were now fractured corridors. Chambers that echoed with their footsteps. The song had changed too, lower now. Not mournful. Warning. We're getting close to the nexus, she said. Riven frowned. Nexus of what? Time. Memory. Meaning. We buried it when we couldn't contain the silence anymore. It was bleeding through reality. Collapsing histories. Changing people into echoes. You think it's still bleeding? No, I think it stopped. Good. No, she said. Not good. Why? Because it means it's listening again. The final chamber was smaller than he expected. Only a dozen meters across. Perfectly circular. And in the center, a spire of light suspended in nothing. Riven reached for his scanner. It cracked. Sparked. Failed. Don't try to read it, she said. You'll forget how. How what? How to be yourself. He stepped back. This is what was singing. Naya nodded. It holds everything we were. Every name. Every memory. Every love story we buried to survive. And now it's waking. Because you came. Riven stared at the light. It pulsed. Once. Twice. Then it spoke. Not in words. In voices. His mother's laugh. His brother's voice calling his name. Naya whispering to him in dreams. A goodbye he had never said. He dropped to his knees. I can't, hold it, he gasped. You're not meant to, she said. And then she sang. Not loud. Just one note. Pure. Whole. And the spire dimmed. Stilled. Quieted. Riven looked up, tears on his face. What did you do? Gave it peace. For now. And later? She looked at him, sorrow carved into beauty. I'll have to leave. No, he said. No, we just found each other. That's why I have to. Back on the surface, the mining team never found the passage. The signal faded. The resonance calmed. They packed their gear 2 days later and left, irritated but empty-handed. Naya and Riven stood on the ridge, the borehole sealed behind them. He held her fingers tightly. How long do we have? A few weeks. Maybe less. The song will call again. Can't we stop it? We are it, she said. We can only shape it. Soften it. He turned to her, grief already blooming. What if I go with you? You weren't built for the weight of memory. Maybe not, he whispered. But I was built to love you. Naya didn't cry. But the wind did. Softly. Like music that remembered its name. And far below, the chamber pulsed once. As if it, too, remembered what it meant to feel. Lorraine had always been haunted by stars. Not the way poets meant it, with longing and wistful metaphors, but quite literally. When he closed his eyes, the constellations rearranged themselves into patterns his mind couldn't stop analyzing. Shapes that felt familiar. Wrong. Like messages in the sky trying to remind him of something he shouldn't remember. He stopped sleeping deeply around age 11. By 17, he knew the names of 100 worlds humanity had never visited. He drew the maps of their surfaces in the corners of notebooks and never told anyone how he knew them. He became a biologist, because that was the only field where seeing patterns no one else could see didn't get you locked away. Now, 34 and worn thin, Lorik was posted to Salvini's 9 to assist the Institute with a glacial anomaly that wouldn't stop blinking red in the database. But when he saw the energy field report, he almost dropped his datapad. It matched the exact harmonic frequencies he'd been hearing in his dreams since childhood. And when he saw the names in the last transmission, Riven Dallin and subject, Naya, he booked a transport without permission. Because Riven Dallin was not just anyone. And Naya was a word from a memory that didn't belong to this life. The shuttle touched down during low light cycle. Snow whipped across the viewport in jagged streaks, like a world trying to erase itself in real time. Lorik stepped out, adjusted his visor, and walked toward the weathered outpost on foot. No one greeted him. There were no lights inside. No signal. But he knew he was being watched. Not by cameras. By memory itself. You shouldn't be here. Riven's voice hadn't changed. Deeper maybe. Wearier. Like someone who had stopped trying to keep his hands clean because the work was too important. He stood in the doorway of the outer dome, arms folded, expression unreadable. Lorik hadn't seen him in 8 years. Not since. I read the report, Lorik said quietly. I didn't send you one. You didn't have to. The field spoke. Riven's eyes narrowed. Still dreaming of the lattice? Lorik exhaled, frost misting the air. Still haunted by it. Riven didn't move. Didn't blink. And Lorik knew he was deciding whether to lie or let the truth unspool. Finally, he stepped aside. She's inside. Naya was unlike anything Lorik had ever seen. And yet, he knew her. Not from science. From memory. The resonance in her presence twisted gravity. His heart raced. Not with desire, but with recognition so deep it turned his knees weak. You're one of them, she said simply. He nodded, stunned. I think so, he whispered. Or, I was. She circled him slowly, like an echo studying its source. Your blood hums with dormant memory. We gave it to you, long ago. But I wasn't born. You were built from us, she said. Sown before the sky broke. Riven stood silently in the corner, eyes on both of them, saying nothing. You feel it too, don't you? Lorik asked him. The weight of her. The familiarity. I feel her, Riven said, his voice a thread. But I don't remember her. Not the way you do. Naya stepped between them. You both remember me in different ways. Riven heard the song. But you. I was part of it, Lorik finished. You were a verse, she said, almost sadly. They worked together over the next 5 days. The chamber beneath the glacier pulsed again, stronger now, and Naya's harmonics began to destabilize. Her skin glowed brighter, and the temperature around her dropped unnaturally. Lorik monitored her vitals. Riven monitored the scanners. Both of them trying not to look too closely at the distance growing between the three of them. Riven said little. Just worked. Naya spoke in riddles now. Not intentionally. It was as if her words were being pulled from different memories, layered across centuries, sometimes even across versions of herself. Lorik tried to stabilize her biochemistry. Her cells were shifting between states, organic and harmonic. She wasn't dying. She was evolving. But into what? On the seventh day, Riven snapped. What are you not telling me? They were alone, standing near the borehole. Lorik had been running field scans. Riven had been watching Naya sleep again. Lorik looked up, calm. About what? You know what? She's returning to what she was built to be. And what is that? A bridge. Riven's jaw clenched. A bridge to what? Not to what? To when? Silence. Lorik's voice softened. The core is a temporal anchor. Her species used it to seed memory across time. To preserve themselves when their world collapsed. So they buried her. They trusted her to remember them. And if she woke, it meant the past was bleeding again. You knew this, Riven said. You knew and didn't tell me. I didn't remember until I saw her, Lorik said honestly. And now? I remember everything. Naya awoke later that night with tears on her face. Riven knelt beside her, brushing frost from her cheek. You're fading, he said softly. No, she whispered. I'm beginning. He kissed her forehead. Don't leave. If I stay, this world breaks. Then let it. You wouldn't say that if it wasn't me. I am saying it because it's you. She held his hand. You taught me how to love the silence, she said. But Lorik taught me why we made it. Riven didn't flinch. I don't care what he remembers. But I do, she whispered. And something in his chest cracked. On the 10th day, the core activated. Not violently. Quietly. Like a heartbeat restarting after too long beneath still water. The resonance field collapsed inward. Time folded. Naya stood in the center of the chamber. Lorik on her right. Riven on her left. And she looked at them both like someone holding two halves of a story. You both gave me something sacred, she said. A reason to stay. And a reason to leave. You don't have to choose, Lorik said. But I do, she replied. And then she turned to Riven. I choose you. His eyes filled. But she wasn't done. I choose you, to forget. He staggered. What? This love, this memory, if you keep it, it will break you. I'd rather break than lose it. No, she said. You'd rather break than watch me go. And you don't have to. She reached up and touched his forehead. This way, you'll remember the feeling. Not the pain. His body shook. His breath caught. But he let her. Then she turned to Lorik. And you, she said. You will remember the rest. I don't want her half, he whispered. You already have it. When Riven awoke, the chamber was dark. The glacier was quiet. His mind was calm. He returned to the outpost. Filed a false report. Packed his things. And left. He did not remember Naya. Not fully. Only the sound of something soft that once loved him back. And Lorik remained beneath the ice. Waiting for the song to return. Because memory, like gravity, always pulls you home.